What's up, guys? Welcome back to the WRPF podcast. I'm your host, Alex Uslar. Episode 62, continuing our Meet Director series. We got two of my boys from Chicago. All right, we have Lawrence Scott and Matt Blankenberger. Super excited to sit and talk with you guys, hear your guys' stories, hear your guys' backgrounds. Lawrence is the owner of Rockwell Barbell. Matt is the VP. Matt is also the recently acquired new owner of Ritual Apparel, a brand that's been around for quite some time, and I know that you were always involved with. So it's cool to hear that that's now kind of your brand. You guys are coming off of another successful event. You guys have been running meets for a long time. So I'm super excited to just kind of sit down, talk shop, and of course, you guys are also fellow tattooed bad boys. All right, so
Yeah.
we have that in the mix too, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Hell yeah!
Thanks for having us on.
Yeah, guys. So kind of just let's start with you, Lawrence. Take it back for me. What got you into the sport of powerlifting? What were you doing before powerlifting? Were you just a punk rock degenerate like myself, and then you kind of found lifting? Like, where did it all begin, bro?
Yeah, so the short version is that probably right around the end of high school, I had two friends who were hardcore dudes, very, very skinny, very small guys, and they somehow ended up at the YMCA. And so they told me, like, hey, you should come through and kind of work out with us. And I think you'll understand this, like you might too, just from like the culture that we kind of grew up in. But when they first brought up the idea of me, working out, like I had such that like punk mindset that I was like, why would I ever work out if I'm going to die anyways? It doesn't make any sense. No reason to do that if I'm going to, we're not. And so that was like such a backwards type of thinking compared to who I am now. But that was really what I thought the first time they asked me. And they wouldn't leave me alone. They just kept inviting me. And finally I went. And then the first night I was there, I think they were lying to me, but they're like, man, you're lifting weights. It took us 6 months to lift. This is crazy. And that got me immediately because I felt like I had done something, even if it was just something minor on a machine at the Y, So that was the very beginning of me working out. And I liked that. I had a taste of it. I just wanted to keep going. And eventually those guys kind of fell off, but I kept doing my own thing. Started looking up, bodybuilding manuals, things like that. And my interest in powerlifting was I was at the Y one day and there was this guy who had just recently immigrated from Poland to my hometown, and I was doing a skull crusher wrong, and he like lit me up about it. He yelled at me in front of everyone in the gym, and I hated him. I didn't talk to him for like 3 months. He wouldn't leave me alone. He just kept talking to me every single time I went there. And finally, I realized that he was like a good guy. He just had very bad social skills. And that was my first powerlifting coach. And
Nice.
he was a geared lifter. His name's Stanley Thomas Hewitt's. At one point, he had like a 900 bench to a 2-ply at 242, and he had a 650 raw bench. And so that was the guy that I really like started following and started listening to what he said, and he kind of got me into the main lifts. And eventually, I moved to Chicago, started working for some like corporate gyms after college, and slowly but surely, I just realized that the environment that I needed to be in was an environment much like your gym, much like my gym. 22nd Street Barbell out of Des Moines. There's a guy named Wes that runs it. I went to his basically the baby version of 22nd Street Barbell, and that was when I realized I'm like, I could have something like that in Chicago if I did it right, And so that's kind of the fast version of how all that happened. I think what it was is that bodybuilding was great and I really enjoy it. I still do it to a degree, but I think the idea of seeing what can lift, if I do the correct amount of work, like that really catches me, and that makes me want to continue training hard, not just in my 20s when I look good or my 30s when I look good, but forever,
So where did you grow up? Where did you go to high school?
I went to high school at United Township in East Moline, Illinois, which is the Quad Cities. It's a bunch of smaller, medium-sized cities that are all combined into one big city.
And when did you graduate?
I graduated in 2002, And then I basically went to a community school because I was surprised that I graduated high school, and I didn't really know like what I was going to do next, but I figured I could probably manage to go to a community school. And the reason I was surprised I graduated is, I grew up as a punk hardcore dude. I lived in a skate park. I lived on dirt trails. I was a BMX rider. And so I didn't study really, I only went to this park and I worked for my dad's business. That was mostly what I did after school. And then once I graduated high school, kind of brought up the idea of, okay, well, if I did that, now what else can I do? And I finally found the right professor at my community school that, said, hey, like, you really know how to write if you try, but you just have to try. And he was easygoing with me enough to where I didn't feel too pressured. And I really did try to write. And that's what got me into a 4-year school. And then I ended up graduating with a journalism degree.
See, so timelines for me are really big because I like to kind of see the big picture. And for me, I'm like, man, all right, he's going to hardcore shows. He said, why am I going to lift just if I'm going to die one day anyway? 2002. We're talking about metalcore, poison the well kind of days, fucking sliced paper wrists. That's why you had that mentality. Absolutely. No shit, dude. For me, so I didn't start going to shows till like 2006, right? So by 2007, 2008, lifting weights wasn't huge in the hardcore scene by any means. But I remember for me, super early on, and it's crazy how things come full circle. And I went to coach him. I went on to coach him recently. Is watching Harm's Way, right, and seeing James and people like that burst out, and where hardcore was a little bit tougher and stuff like that, and that kind of pushed me in that. So for sure, you got to see some of those metalcore glory days, and then me, I get to see James and stuff like that. And for me, I was like, man, okay. Yeah, no, I need to be bigger. I need to be tougher. And that's kind of what got me to start wanting to lift weights.
Yeah, and you bring up a great point because that was a big part of sort of the middle section of that explanation that I gave you. I didn't really realize it at the moment I was mentioning it, but I think a big part of that was seeing the results in the gym and then going to shows and feeling a little bit more secure, a little bit more confident. And whether it was bravado or not, it was a big part of why, we were in the gym doing that,
Yeah. So take me through that evolution of those early 2000s. You graduate, you decide you want to start doing this kind of with your life. And you said you moved to Chicago and you start working at some corporate gyms, right?
Yeah.
So where did that transition go? And still in that time in the early 2000s, powerlifting is tiny. You happen to find the one diamond in the rough of meeting some guy who's like, a world champion, a great at multiply, but most people aren't going to walk in a gym and meet that. So what was kind of the evolution through your eyes seeing powerlifting, and when did you start seeing the competitive side of things and start following kind of more closely like that?
Well, the guy that I mentioned that was technically my first powerlifting coach had been urging me for a long time to do a meet. And I don't really know why I originally didn't do it. It took him several years of pushing me to do it. And we kept in contact even when I moved to Chicago. And he actually became a really close friend of my parents after I moved to Chicago, which is kind of funny too, because, originally I didn't want to talk to him. And then he ended up at every Thanksgiving, every Christmas, you name it. But he kept urging me to do it. And I think as I got a little bit more comfortable lifting and my endurance got better, I was able to train longer. It wasn't a big deal to train for an hour or two anymore, and so then I started thinking, I was like, all right, well, if I can do a really long squat workout and then 2 hours accessories, I could probably manage a meet, if I plan for it. And I was also curious to see where I ended up because I was always in a gym, mostly with bodybuilders. And so I had a little bit of a false confidence. And honestly, as funny as it sounds, is I really thought I was going to go into my first meet and like really kick some serious ass, and like I found out very quickly that I was at the bottom of the barrel, and I think that's what made me want to keep doing it, to be truthful. And, that's what got me into doing another meet and another meet. And I didn't realize it, but I was digging into sort of like the powerlifting culture by, continuing to do these meets and meeting people. And then I realized, a judge that gave me a red light, pulled me aside when I was on my way back to the lineup to explain to me why he gave me the red light, and I was like really surprised by that. But like now that I'm deep into powerlifting, like I am now, I understand like why he did that. He did that because that's what you should do if you have the chance, if you have the opportunity to help someone. You don't just like let them fail over and over and wonder why. Tell them, even if it's going to hurt their feelings, even if it's going to bum them out, it's just the truth. So I think I just did enough meets where I eventually just kind of got sucked into it, very much like hardcore. I originally went to a hardcore show because I never really fit in with the two in crowds in high school, and then the right person invited me to a show, and I didn't understand it, but I felt right there. Same thing with powerlifting meets. I never questioned a powerlifting meet. I just went to it, did it, and then went back to the next one. And I never thought about whether I liked it or not. I just kept going.
So timeline wise, how long did this competing and being engulfed in loving powerlifting be before it became your actual career that you saw yourself being able to open a facility?
Yeah, I think I did my first powerlifting meet in 2011, maybe early 2012, 2024 now. So, 12 years, maybe a little more, a little less. But, I originally was working at corporate gyms doing sales, actually with Jake Hartman. And Matt too. Matt actually, so we worked for Crunch, and Matt was the personal training manager, and Jake had done sales in Des Moines, Iowa, or not in Des Moines, sorry. He did sales in Davenport, Iowa for Gold's, and him and I moved to Chicago together. He was one of the first guys that I moved to Chicago with. He was one of my first roommates here in Chicago.
And did you guys know each other because of the hardcore scene, or did you know each other because powerlifting?
Yeah, no, I'm smiling because we know each other through hardcore. And I remember, I was always going to shows with a certain crew of people. And, one of these days, I think I was in Peoria, Illinois, and I saw this kid with like jet black hair show up, and he was just like such a runt, man. And he was such a pain in the ass. And he was just like wearing super short shorts, like short mesh shorts, and like a tank top. And he was like just moshing like really unnecessarily hard for the kind of show it was. It wasn't that kind of show. And he was just like wrecking people, And I remember being like, God, who is that dude? He's so annoying, And then it ended up being like one of my best friends. I ended up living with a guy. We're obviously a part of the same powerlifting federation now, but yeah, so he got me the job at Crunch. And Matt happened to be working at Crunch. That's how I met Matt. And, I worked there for a number of years. Jake and I did really well in the sales. Matt did really well in the personal training department. And eventually that place sold to another company. And Matt went and worked for an independent training studio here in Chicago. I actually did some manual labor for a little while after that with my dad. And then circled back around to working for a different gym, and then became a personal trainer. And at one point I had told Matt that I was trying to get out of there. And Matt was like, well, you should come to the private training studio and be an independent contractor and make real money, And so that's how I ended up working with Matt at this private studio. And I worked there for probably 5 years or so. And I started to realize over time that I was like, man, this place is really amenity based, which is fine, but it just wasn't right for me. It really wasn't right for my clients either. And it was like one of those places where you had to have the music down quieter. You couldn't really use chalk. It was more of a swanky thing. It wasn't really like the type of environment that and Matt fosters. So I went to Quad's Gym, which, is a famous bodybuilding gym in Chicago. Everyone knows who Quads is. And I trained there for a little while as well. But at that point, it had kind of been a little bit more about bodybuilding, a little less about powerlifting at that time. I don't know how it is now. I haven't been there in, 10 years. But so I started thinking, I'm like, how can I create a place that fosters the environment I want? Like, it's okay for the music to be loud. It's okay to use chalk. It's okay to, expect a little bit more aggression out of the training floor, you know. And so that's what led me to like renting this little 500 square foot basement in the bottom of a factory building. Totally uninhabitable by people. Like there's no way that I should have been renting that spot, you know, like not okay for the public whatsoever. It was just me and like 2 or 3 hardcore dudes, and a hardcore girl that was dating one of my buddies at the time. And to basically fast forward, you know, we were there for a year. I rented that spot thinking that it would maybe be temporary. You know, I was like, well, I don't know, I'll lose like $1,000 if I have to. It's not a big deal. Like if it doesn't work out or whatever. And under that year, we ran out of room. We had no more space down there. I kind of had it to here with the training studio that I was at. Same with Matt. I know Matt shares the same sentiments of like, you know, too much amenities, you know, not really the right environment to be lifting heavy and aggressively. And so that's when I was like, well, I think I'm going to take all of my weird friends and combine them with the clients that I'm training at this other place and see if we can all just get along, make it work. We might all have the same goals. Maybe we're not the same at all. You know, like one of my clients is like a 65-year-old senior engineer, you know, and I was able to mix them with my friends. And when I left that training studio, I told Matt I was going, and Matt was like, yo, I'm going with, man. Like, he's like, I can't stay here. And I think he knew in the bottom of his heart that he wasn't done with training and lifting or training clients. But if he had stayed in a place like that, maybe he would have been, you know. And so he came with, and he's the one that really took the leap, you know, like I could have totally, you know, landed on my face and ate shit, you know, and Matt was like, you know, I'm going to go with, dude. And you know, you can open this place and I'll be there. And that's kind of how Matt turned into like the VP of Rockwell, is because like it was out of necessity, you know, like we needed someone to take care of XYZ on the back end while I'm making sure that, you know, the bills get paid and the thing doesn't fail and sink, you know, which, you know, I know you're very like familiar with that territory, you know.
Dude, I love that. And what stands out a lot to me, being in similar situations, following similar paths like that you guys have, is that you guys have stayed together through all of this, and you guys have been able to flow and evolve and ride a wave together. That's really fucking special, because it's super unfortunate. And when I've told these stories, when I think about these stories, there's so many people that it's like we were riding together, and then a bump comes, and then just, you know what I mean? So that's truly a testament to the friendship and what you guys have, you know, been able to build, and being along together for the ride, and getting you ultimately to the present where we're at right now of Rockwell when its early inception of opening. And we'll dive into that in the second part here, where we kind of talk about from where it started to where it is now. But Matt, Let's jump to you, dude. Let's hear kind of what got you to Crunch, to meeting Lawrence, and finding powerlifting. Was it side by side with Lawrence? Did he introduce you? Take me back, bro.
Okay, so I was kind of an outcast in high school, and I played football, and I was always hanging out with the grunge kids, because like I graduated high school in '98, so I graduated 4 years before Lawrence. So we kind of are in the same music era. So at the beginning of high school, which would be '94, that's when like grunge hit. So that was like, you know, it was grunge, and then it was like Marilyn Manson, and then it was like Korn. And it was like I always hung out with those kids, the outcasts of high school. So after high school, I played football. I was good at football. I went to college. I went to a community school because I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. So, well, I played football in college for a little bit, and then I hurt myself. And then I went to community school, and I was like, well, what am I going to do with myself? Because I don't know what I want to do. And I was working construction at the time for the city of Chicago Heights, where I grew up which is on the south side of Chicago. And then there's this guy, Tom, who I worked with, who lifted weights all the time. And he was always like, oh, come to the gym with me during our lunch break. And I would go to the gym and lift weights with them. And then I got like really into lifting weights. And there was all these like old school like powerlifters there. And I kind of like didn't really know what it was at the time until like Lawrence kind of taught me what it was, I think about 15 to 16 years ago, I think you taught me.
What powerlifting?
Yeah, like you started to get me do it.
Yeah.
So I really didn't know until after the fact, like looking back when I was actually doing powerlifting, and I look back, I was like, oh, I could have learned a lot from those guys, because they were like in their 40s and 50s, and they were like firemen, and they're all just like big, big dudes, and like the late 1990s. And then I dated this guy who was a personal trainer, and he was like, oh, you should get into personal training. And I was like living in the burbs, and I was like, I'm tired of living in the burbs, so I'm just going to bite the bullet, get a job at Crunch. I got a job at Crunch. I moved to the city. I lived with two of my friends. It was hard at first. I was like 23, and I was just like, pinching pennies trying to live. And then after like 2 years of training, a year of training, I got really good at it. And I think I'm just a very friendly person. I'm pretty good at training, but I think my personality goes a long way, to be honest.
Dude,
and
let me just stop you there. People don't understand how important that is. And that's like the struggle that I have with people who independent trainers, people who I have at my gym, people who work underneath me. I did it myself for so many years too. And if you're not personable and you don't have a good personality, it doesn't matter if you give people the best results of their body in the world, right? You're not going to be a very successful personal trainer. And yeah, you are extremely personable. So I can attest to that. But yeah, a lot of trainers, and that's where there's a huge disconnect also right now with like the online training world, right? And that anyone can do it. You don't have to have a personality. You don't have to be as personable. But with that old school in-person training, it's like either you have that personality and you're cut out to be successful in it, or you're not, and your client retention is to be shit. So yeah. Sorry to cut you off, but yeah, 100%.
No, you're good. So, like, I got good at it, and like people would just keep renewing with me, and I wouldn't lose a lot of clients. I think that's because I'm personable and because like people like me, and I know how to give them results. It doesn't take like a million different odd multi-planar exercises to give people results. Basic things on like a regular program and consistency will give people results. So that, provided with a good personality, someone to talk to, I think people like that. So anyway, I got good at training, and then I got promoted to the training manager, and we did well until like Crunch sold. I met Lawrence at Crunch when I was the training manager. He was there selling memberships, and we kind of like we weren't really like friends, so to say. We were like talked because we were coworkers. And then like circle back, like he said, a few years went by, he quit, then he began training. I was over it because my boss was fine, but the big picture boss kind of just screwed us all over. And then I went and worked with this guy. And then Lawrence came and worked with me. And then we started working there, and it was kind of like really bougie, and which is fine. People like that. And then like Lawrence, I was like just lifting weights. And mind you, I was like probably a 25, 26 year old. No, I was about 28. And I was like a gay man, and I like, had to look good because like, unfortunately, gay men are vain, and like, that's just the way it is. And Lawrence one day, like he would always try to be like, come on, let's go squat together. And I would be like, okay, fine. He's like, let's just get coffee. And then we would get coffee, and then I go squat with him. And then I realized I was like pretty good at it, and deadlifting I was good at. And then he just kept getting me to go. And then finally I drank the Kool-Aid, and I was like, oh, this is fun. And it was a good way for me to get like my anger and like to focus like on something that like I could really accelerate in and be strong at, and be like, it was just very cathartic for me. The redundancy of lifting heavy and like abusing myself, while listening to like really, really heavy music.
So good.
But I mean, it's the truth, so, and then going up, like, I think it was 2000. What year was it when we left?
Well, so just to jump in real quick, I started Rockwell in 2014, and it had that year of sort of experimentation. And then when I realized that, I needed to leave that place that I was working at, and the place that Rockwell was in wasn't big enough, and it also like it wasn't legal to be there, like anyways. So Rockwell started in 2015 in September.
Yeah.
And that was basically when you took off from Hero.
Yeah. And then I left there, and then me and Lawrence opened this place, and it was like, it was hard. I mean, this place was just a little hole in the wall. And like, we had probably like 6 friends of ours help us literally build it from nothing. And I mean, it was a lot of work, but like, it really makes us love this place and appreciate this place a lot because, he had the idea and we created it together. And like those people that helped us from the beginning,
if you talk about like that time period, right? 2013, 2014, 2015, powerlifting was starting to get a little bit of, trajectory with social media and the emergence of raw powerlifting and stuff like that. But still, man, if you were to open in any major city around that time a powerlifting gym, it's going to be fucking hard. If you're to open a powerlifting gym now 10 years later in 2024 in any major city and there's not already something established for powerlifting, it's going to be pretty fucking it's going to be easier, I should say, significantly easier, right? So you guys jumped in at that time where it was like, it was really risky because, people aren't going on Google and looking for local powerlifting gym, right? You guys are personal trainers working at gyms where people are going on Google and searching for personal training near me, right? So kind of take me through that flip. And when you guys were opening, was it really like powerlifting based? Was it a mix of you guys were powerlifters and then you were able to also bring over your personal trainers, market to those kind of people? And how were things able to kind of keep growing from there?
So I'll start and then Lawrence could jump in. Basically, what we did is Lawrence and I had a very large clientele base for training. And I think you and I were just training at first, right? And then we had the members we had a handful of people that paid memberships or helped pay the rent in a small space. And they came over and helped pay us the rent here. And then we got a lot of our clients to join the gym, right, Lawrence? Is that how?
Yeah. So if I remember correctly, what happened was after I had Rockwell open at the original location for a year, there was 50 solid paying members. Yeah. From that first year that were coming over immediately, and every single person came with us. When I kind of started here and Matt came with, I had all of my personal training clients, which was a fairly big book. Same thing with Matt. Matt had all of his personal training clients, which is a fairly big book, probably maybe a little bit bigger.
We both had big books.
And like Matt was saying, is that some of those clients also joined the gym as members. So we had memberships from the original people, and then we had memberships from our clients who had already, they know us, they trusted us. We already had that relationship there. I think they knew that if we were going to do something that, it would be worthwhile. So that's why they joined. And they also joined, I wouldn't say from like a charitable aspect, but they also joined because you know how it is. If you can get on the ground floor, I mean, you know better than anyone, but if you can get in on the ground floor of something, whether it's your own or not your own, you want that chance to be a part of the start of something. You don't get that many opportunities in life to do that, especially if it's something special. And so I think a lot of our clients, wanted to see the gym work. They wanted to see us be successful as trainers, and they wanted to see our lives get better. And then they wanted a place that they liked too. And so I think everyone kind of took ownership in that, and that's why they joined, And then at first, the neighborhood wasn't super sure about the gym because across the street from the gym, they're rehabbed now. Now they're nice buildings, right? It's very pretty to look at. They're nice. They're more expensive places to live, but when I first opened the gym here, it was the projects. So across the street, it was abandoned projects. It was fenced up in a huge square so no one could get in because there was too much crime going down. Even though the projects were closed, people were dealing drugs in the abandoned projects, waters. I mean, you can imagine, what that would be like. So at first, people were scared to come here. Some clients were kind of upset that we were training here. But over time, the neighborhood changed partially because the gym was here. We're kind of a stronghold for the neighborhood. People know that we're not messing around. But also the neighborhood changed, other businesses opened. a little bit more prominent neighborhood from the south of us and also the east of us kind of spilled into our neighborhood. And so it made it a little bit better. And then, the neighborhood, once they realized that, we're like, okay, people, that we're serious, we're professional, we're also not going away. I think people started realizing that, okay, it's year 2, it's year 3, it's year 4. The neighborhood started joining too. We started getting random people coming in. We started getting inquiries from the neighborhood, a building across the street. People from, like I said, the prominent neighborhood south of us or east of us started inquiring about the gym. So there was some level of acceptance from the surrounding area that also helped. And then, we just continued, adding referrals to our books and got referrals from members that just brought in their friends and family. And then honestly, a big part of the success of the gym too was all the people that I knew through hardcore, like I don't know, probably 80% of the members in the beginning of this gym were hardcore kids.
Yeah.
And there's still a lot of people that are members here that are hardcore kids or punk kids or noise, we can go on forever with that, but it's still a mainstay. But in the beginning, it was like 80, maybe 90%, and I'll never forget that. And that's why I'll never, ever cater to people that want the music to be turned down too low, or they don't want metal on, they don't want hardcore on. They're trying to change our place to make it something it's not. I'll never bend to that. And the reason I won't bend to it is partially of our own selfishness, but a lot of it is that there's something owed to the people that made this thing work in the first place, and I don't want to ruin that for them. I don't want to be a sellout and be like, oh yeah, man, like shit used to be cool there. And then, like now it needs to be like professional or, it needs to be like, commercial grade, like you can still do well without doing all that other shit,
And it's like what you said, it's those people who got in on the ground floor, but so many people who got in on the ground floor were people who were connected to the other pieces of your life who wanted to support. It's not even a charity thing. It's people wanting to support. Hardcore is all about support in a lot of aspects, right? And having each other's back and unifying. So you were able to build it on a foundation that ultimately for someone from the hardcore scene building something up is the absolute dream to be able to build it on something like that. And to see it continued and carried over is so freaking cool. Like me, I'm guilty of wishing that I could build something solely on that or doing something more premised on that. But God knows I have my wife and the area. I mean, you saw where my gym is in Miami. We're in a very high-end area of Miami. So it's like expenses, rent, everything are through the roof. So I have to, from the moment I open the doors, if I want to be somewhere like this and to be successful, I have to cater to those people. So my wife doesn't even let me play hardcore half the time. I have to turn it down. And it sucks. But to be able, it's not to say that you can't succeed in one model versus the other, but to be able to see something in that model succeed for so long, it's fucking cool. It's really cool.
Yeah. Well, thanks, man. It means a lot. And real quick, I wanted to sort of chime in because, we were down there for the Ghost Clash. What was that, back in April?
Yeah.
My fiance, Katie, didn't go with, but I kind of always give her the report on gyms that I go to. When we travel together, like I'll go to gyms no matter what. Sometimes she goes with, sometimes she doesn't. But I always give her the report on what I thought about the gym or, the owner of the gym or management or whatever. But when I got back to Chicago from that trip, the first thing I said to her when I was talking about Ghost was, I said that it's very different from Rockwell, which in all the ways that you just mentioned, right? Whether it's like equipment, the layout, the feel, the vibe, the branding, etc. But when I got back, I said, it's very well done. Like you could tell there's a lot of effort put into it. And it's weird. Like obviously powerlifting is powerlifting, like that doesn't really vary that much. We're all kind of doing the same thing, generally speaking. But, a vibe is really important for a gym. And it just seems like everything is very together there, and it seems like everyone takes it very seriously too, which is a big deal to me. I go to a lot of different powerlifting gyms all over the country and even out of the country now that I'm, able to travel. And so it's clear to see right when you get into a place what you're dealing with, and so it may be a little bit different, man, but like hats off to you for, creating that and Ghost, it's a big deal.
Thank you, man. Yeah, I appreciate it. It's definitely something that's unique and it's different, and it's not what you typically every day kind of see in the space. And I literally had to have this argument with someone recently, someone who bought like a 2 week pass, and they were like bitching about the gym and the rules that I have and stuff like that. I had to tell someone, I'm like, you know what? As unfortunate as this is when I was going to open Ghost Gym, it was going to be a powerlifting gym. I was going to be in the hood, somewhere where my rent was going to be a quarter of what it is right now. It was going to be a powerlifting warehouse gym. My gym is not a powerlifting gym. We are primarily powerlifting, but we're not solely powerlifting. And that comes with just kind of adapting and fluctuating your business model and what makes sense. And for me, that's what I had to kind of pivot to be able to make ends meet in a place that's as expensive as what it is, and 4 times what I originally had planned. When I'm like, man, I want to open my own fucking powerlifting gym and stop working for someone else. But
I feel it. And I was going to say that. Does it surprise you that Rockwell has an element of that too? Like, because I don't know how it looks from the outside looking in, but there's actually a lot of elements of Rockwell that are kind of what you're explaining.
Well, it just from what you guys have told me the story. So me on the outside, always looking at Rockwell, like even when I met you, I didn't know you were the owner of Rockwell, but I've known about Rockwell since 2017 when I was working for Hybrid, and Steph used to always go up there, and I'd see pictures and I'd see videos, and some of my Chicago buddies I knew would train there and shit like that. I'm like, all these guys are all tattooed. They're all hardcore guys. And I'm like, this is a powerlifting gym. She's powerlifting training there. But then hearing the story, it's like, of course, you have to have those elements, because if you are solely, strictly hardcore powerlifting, those other clientele that you have that you took over, even though they know that's you guys, they're not going to feel as comfortable there too. So it's finding the balance as a gym owner of making different. You're at the end of the day, you're not going to always make 100%. Of people happy. But finding out how to make as many people as possible happy while still staying true to yourself, while still having a successful business that can stay open, right?
Definitely. And the one thing I was going to bring up too is I don't think it was necessarily on purpose. It was just kind of out of necessity. But when Matt started personal training here, and a lot of his clients were friends of his too, and because of Matt and because of Matt's friends and clients, it became a very gay-friendly place. Yeah. And the original Rockwell would have been too, but we just didn't know the people, like the people that had been there were just kind of like, I don't know, me and my buddy James, who was also like pretty much a carbon copy of me, my buddy James, or my buddy Eugene, who's like the same thing, So once Matt came here and once Matt's clients came here, and it kind of opened the doors for it being a gay-friendly gym, and then the word got out, and then it kind of became the place to go to know that you can come in and work out. And like, I've never been to a gym where I noticed people were hateful towards gay people. But I know that it happens, and I would have never noticed it because I'm me, I don't have to deal with any of that shit. Yeah. But I started hearing from people, friends of Matt's or new clients that came in, and they started mentioning like, hey, it's cool to come here and train with a bunch of you weirdos. And like, I can just be myself. I don't have to worry about anything. I also feel like taken care of, and I know no one's going to mess with me, because you guys are here, and it kind of became a safe haven, kind of on accident. But I think once we realized that was happening, I think really made sure to like secure that kind of environment, and then that, I think that really helped shape the place, and now, I mean, we kind of do that for a lot of different people. Like there's older people that train here that feel respected, and people give a shit like what they're doing, like I had a lady today she's probably 70. She was pulling the sled, and one of my clients went up to her and started like getting her all fired up and told her how like hardcore it was if she's dragging a sled, with that much weight on it. Yeah. So like, I think once we realized like, all right, like this person wants to be here and they bust their ass and like they deserve to be here. So we're going to like protect them and take care of them. It doesn't really matter who you are, but like, I think as we keep going on forward, we realize like, oh yeah, like that crowd or that person or whatever. And I really enjoy that shit, man. I think it's like reverse bullying,
Yeah. So we have a group of like gay guys that are all my best friends, and we're the majority of them are the strongest guys at the gym.
Yeah, without a doubt.
I mean, we're like a big wrecking crew. We're all like 250. We all have like 1,700 totals or bigger. And it's just kind of insane to like watch that niche little group of my friends who are gay guys just get stronger and stronger and stronger. It's kind of crazy.
And it's all about fostering a community, right? And people being able to find that community and ultimately feel like it's genuine, right? And it's cool what you guys have been able to foster in all those different directions. So through these last 9 years of this current Rockwell variation version, you guys working together side by side, growing the gym, obviously comes with running meets. So at what point did you guys decide, being involved in powerlifting, competing yourselves, that you wanted to run competitions and you started running competitions?
Do you want me to go or you go?
I'll just say something really brief. I think this is probably like a good thing for Matt to answer, but there was a little snippet of information that I thought was kind of important leading up to it. But when Rockwell first started, there was 2 veterans. They both still train here. I don't know if you know who Adam Boss is, but Adam's familiar. A good friend of mine. And then,
he's the singer in Military Image. His band's.
Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah.
Yeah. So Adam was one of the original members. And then Dan Rosales, also an original member. He still trains here as well. They're, both veterans. And we were just talking, and they wanted to run a veteran charity. And for some reason, we weren't really sure how we were going to run that charity. And so like the idea came up, and it was like, well, why don't we just go through this organization called the Darby Project, and we'll run a non-sanctioned meet and just try to raise as much money for them as possible. We'll just donate the money. So that was our first powerlifting meet ever, was a charity for veterans. And that was our first like full powerlifting meet. And we ran it as close as possible to a legit powerlifting meet. We had judges and, but it wasn't sanctioned. And I think we really enjoyed that. How we got started in the USPA is probably something you can answer.
Yeah.
Because I honestly don't remember, but I remembered that Matt was mentioning that it was something that he wanted to do. And I was like, that's kind of interesting. And obviously I'd already been powerlifting for a while. And so it just seemed like kind of a natural progression. But I don't know how the USPA thing came about.
So, yeah, I knew like I wanted to become a ref. So Sergio was like the state chair, and he was running meets at his meet already, or at his gym. So I was like, all right, I want to become a ref. So I became a ref, and then I was reffing meets at other gyms around the city. And then I asked Sergio to teach me how to become a meet director. So I started doing meets with him, which I learned a lot from him. He helped us out a lot in the beginning. I was doing them, and then it turned out that Wisconsin needed a state chair, and they needed to run meets up in Wisconsin because there was no USPA meets being ran. So I believe Sergio asked me to do it, and I said, sure. So I think we first had Midwest Challenge here before I started doing
the chair
Wisconsin
thing.
meet.
The chair thing came later.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do think that you started working with Sergio. Sergio's gym is called Surge to New Levels.
He knows Sergio. Yeah, he knows Sergio.
No, I know, but the other people.
Oh, yeah. Sorry.
But anyways, so I think when he was working with Sergio, that's kind of how the USPA thing happened. And then I believe we had the idea to run a legit powerlifting meet. And our first meet that we ran was a 100-person meet. And we ran it in one day.
That was the Midwest Challenge. We rented a space, and we had 2 platforms.
Yeah.
It was good, but it was 100 degrees that day, and there was no air conditioning.
Yeah.
Oh, sick.
No AC. Very nice venue, but just no AC. It was some kind of like weapons manufacturing building for like a World War I or World War II, and it was literally a bunker with like 40-foot ceilings. And that's why we rented it. Also because it just looked really intense.
Yeah, it was cool.
I was like, this looks like a place where people can lift and be inspired by just how brutal this space looks,
Yeah.
or uninspired, you know. But yeah, it was a 100-person meet, too many people in one day, but I'm kind of glad that we did it because it got people's attention. People walked into that meet and the entire building was full of people wall to wall. And even though it was 100 degrees, like, I didn't care, and other people like bitched about it, but everyone still didn't care and had a great meet. And I think it kind of started something for having bigger meets in Chicago. That was one of the bigger meets I'd ever seen in Chicago. I'm sure that there was huge ones before my time, but as far as I can remember, you know, I'd already done 4 or 5 meets prior to that.
That was crazy.
I always felt like meets somewhat felt like a golf tournament. You know, it was always quiet, and it was always in a huge gymnasium with very few people. And I always just thought it could be maybe a little bit better than that. I always wanted to feel more like a jam, more like a hardcore show or a fest, you know, or something like that, you know.
Yeah.
So
did we bring our own speakers there?
No, they had their own sound system.
We were maxing them out.
We definitely tested the limits of their sound system.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was sort of the beginning of it. And then Matt just kept getting a little bit more entrenched in powerlifting as far as the federation side of thing goes. Ironically enough, because I'm a very stubborn person, but for a very long time, I was I wouldn't say I was anti powerlifting federation as far as like, I just didn't want to get involved with it for a long time. I think I always saw myself as a lifter, but I never saw myself getting involved with it internally or as a referee or as a meet director. But luckily Matt kept diving deeper and deeper into it.
Yeah.
And then after that first meet, you know, Matt wanted to do more meets. And so I was like, yeah, like I'll do another one. So actually it's kind of funny, but Matt was like the meet director, like as far as face value goes, for a very long time.
Yeah.
And I never was officially involved with any federation. I was always there. I would help set it up. I would help run it. I would help do all the back end stuff. You name it, I would do it. I just didn't want to have my name on it. I didn't want to ref. I don't know why. I just didn't want to be involved with it. I guess it was just like the rebellious side of me that, you know, was like, no. And then after a while, I realized I'm like, this is a really great thing. I think once the switch happened to the WRPF, I think that to me was like, okay, there's a change happening here. Again, getting in on the ground floor kind of thing, even though it had already been around for a while. But you know, this most recent chapter was a really important chapter, you know, for your federation. And I was like, you know what? Yeah, I'm going to become a ref, and I want to be an actual meet director with Matt. I want to do things, you know, entirely, not just on the back end.
Yeah.
And I think I liked who was doing it. You know, like I liked the people that went over to the WRPF.
Alex.
Yep.
We like Al. We like everyone that's like kind of our age, you know.
Yeah, Garrett. You know,
like everyone that's like from our realm. It's very easy to work with people that are like, you know, birds of a feather flock together. Whereas in the USPA, I'm not going to name names, but it was very like militant and very like, you know, the older white man, kind of like the presidents, and it just was not really our vibe. I mean, looking back, like I learned a lot, but it wasn't really us, you know?
Oh, dude, I was a USPA judge in 2015, and that was my exact experience come 2017. Where like the Florida chair was a dictator, an old dude who no one else could do anything. It was his show or no show, you know. In the first hybrid showdown in 2018, we ran at USPA, and when I wanted to try to do things myself, there was no flexibility, you know. So that's why I was one of the first people to start doing the WRPF and running WRPF meets alongside Dan Green at that time, you know. And it's like I saw that, but I got like the major like repercussions of it just being, you know, not someone on the same page as you, not ran by people, you know, with the same sight that we have, you know. So for me, it was super early on, and then being able to be in that kind of that driver's seat and help guide everyone to the kind of this new place that was already around, like what you said, Lawrence, but it was just not as inhabited, you know. So now it's like, you know what, everyone can be here, everyone can feel like the same, and it's been a good change, man. It's been a good change over the last 2 years.
I have to say that you know, it was pretty heartbreaking when all that stuff unfolded, because just like everyone, all of us sitting here talking, and so many other people, thousands and thousands of people, had put so much time and so much work and so much of their heart into powerlifting leading up to, all that shit happening. And so when all that fell apart, I'm sure everyone, can attest to feeling pretty lost and sort of like, what did all my work add up to?
Yeah.
What did everything that we did all these years, like, what was it for? And looking back on it, I'm like, no, like, I don't think I'm going to let other people ruin this for me, and I think we all kind of like silently shared that sentiment, you know what I mean? And kind of like, I think that's why everything just erupted in the last 2 years, and yeah, I think I really like the vibe, what's going on now. I like the meets. I like people that I meet out of state. A lot of the people seem very similar, even though like, it's not like, we're all trying to copy each other. It's just that I think everyone just wants the same thing, which is just the basic expectations of a well-ran federation and good powerlifting meets and fun meets,
Hell yeah, man. So with present day, you guys just had, this was the Midwest Challenge, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So this is how many years that you guys have been running it now?
6. This is the 6th year.
This is the 6th year.
Fuck yeah, that's fucking sick. So with that, what's next? What else is on the horizon with you guys? Lawrence, obviously, like you said, over the last 18 months, you've kind of come to the forefront more, been involved even more. What else do you guys have planned for Rockwell? What else do you guys have planned from a competition standpoint?
So competitions, we have one in November, which last year was March of the Pigs. It was a 9 Inch Nails themed. So we're staying with the 9 Inch Nails theme. We're just going on a Pretty Hate Machine record theme. We named it Down in It. So ideally, what we would like
That's
to
such
do,
a sick name.
What we would like to do is host 4 meets a year. Sergio's doing like 6, I think. And then I think G&D's doing meets at like 1 or 2, not sure. But we're going to do 4. We're going to aim to do 4, which is a winter one, a fall one, a summer one, and spring one. It just matters if like we could get the dates in time to do them. And the cool thing is now that we could run meets that are both drug tested and not at the same time, it just makes our lives easier from like meet directors and referee standpoints, where we're not, having double staff for separate meets, like on separate days or separate sessions. Yes, maybe it shuts down the amount of people that are allowed to sign up, but I feel like we ran it together the last 2 times and it went really well. It kind of takes away the eliteness of like the drug tested meet thing, and everyone like works together. Not saying that's wrong, but like, that's just, I think, the way it is. And I don't know. I kind of like the way the last 2 meets.
I like the mix. If it works out for you, and that's the kind of combination you need for time's sake or organization. I think it's fantastic that they have the option. I think the next thing is just we have a meet coming up in November that Matt was talking about, and I want to have the next meet be same intensity. Same volume of people showing up. I think we had 150 people in our building on Saturday.
Spectators, it was full.
And for like a local meet, I mean, that's super ideal. It's so fun, and like I said earlier, it feels like a jam. It doesn't feel so organized, even though it is, for the people who show up to watch, and also the people who have to be there all day. I mean, you want it to be a little like crazy and fun, and feels like you're hanging out at a barbecue, even though you're there doing business. So I think just trying to make sure that each meet is ran at a similar caliber, and then as far as the gym goes, I mean, it's kind of always been the same thing. I think we have always focused on evolving the people that are here to making sure that the next version of the crew is better than the previous version as far as quality of people is concerned.
You're talking about like us that work here and members, right?
Yeah, everyone that's in the building. Like it seems like we're always kind of carving out a little bit better, rendition of the previous year or two, prior. And I think I just want to make sure that we keep accruing the right people, because we have over time, and it's noticeably different in here for the people that work here all day and also for the people that come here to work out or to come here and do training sessions. So just continuing accruing the right people. Over time, we've strived really hard at getting better and better equipment, which when I was at your gym, I noticed that the equipment there was phenomenal. Yeah. And it shows that a lot goes into it and choosing what is in your building. And to me and to Matt and several of the trainers here, and Beyonce, Katie, like we all talk amongst each other, like, what do we need next? What do we have that isn't quite working so well? Always trying to make better usage of our space. Cause you know how it goes. Like once you get a floor full of training equipment, what's in there and where things are placed matters hugely. So we're always trying to, get a little bit better equipment and, basically just try to, just be a better gym than we were the previous year, or be a better trainer than we were the previous year. When I think we're doing that. So I think we just are trying to continue that on and not allow ourselves to get distracted by anything that comes along the way. Like the longer, how it is, the longer you are as a business owner, or as a gym owner, or, as a trainer or a meet director, there's a lot of things that are going to come up. They're going to try to get you off track. And I kind of always return to showing up here the next morning at 5 a.m. and just doing a better job than I did the day before. I try not to pay attention to anything else outside of that.
And you nailed it with that. That hits close to home for me as well, because over the last couple of years for me, since leaving hybrid, working for them for years, before that working at another gym, and always kind of just constantly like kind of climbing a ladder to kind of get to where I am today. A lot of people ask me because they've always seen me so fast moving there. So what's next? So what else? So what next? What's next? But I've become a point in my life over the last like year and a half where it's like, no, there's nothing else that has to be from the outside brought in. It's now improving what I currently have and keep making what I'm currently doing the best possible. And what that will do, in my opinion, is just what you already have that's successful is just going to keep growing it and making it the best version of itself. So love to hear.
Yeah, I agree. I did have a quick question for you. As far as running a bigger meet like the Ghost Clash or running meets in general, what would you say has been like the biggest thing that you've realized over the years that has made it easier on yourself running the meets, or made it easier on the people there showing up to do the meet, like from an efficiency level, or just like de-stressing yourself, or from like even like a marketing level, getting it out there that you're doing this meet? I just wanted to ask you what some of the bigger things that you figured out over the years, so that Matt and I can try to pick up on it, or anyone else that directs meets or runs a gym can kind of borrow the information, because I feel really confident in what we do, but I don't think that we don't have anything to figure out, so.
Right. Well, it's funny you ask, because literally 2 episodes ago, so just only 2 or 3 weeks ago, I did an episode where I kind of dived into my whole story of what got me to becoming a meet director, which I wasn't even an official meet director till 2019. But from 2012, when I started working at the gym that I worked at from 2012 to 2017, before I quit and worked for Hybrid, I was involved in running competitions for that gym and very high-level weightlifting meets, because the gym was primarily a weightlifting gym. And I was able to kind of see all that and learn all that stuff on the back end. So for me, as far as running and efficiency, I'm extremely micromanaged. I don't let anyone touch my kind of creations. You know what I mean? But it was many, many years of being on the back end of events before events were actually my own, like way more time than most people, And then, like I said, the first Hybrid Showdown it went from me helping run big level weightlifting meets, doing an unsanctioned super total meet, to then running the Hybrid Showdown, where I wasn't the meet director, but I essentially was. It was, the USPA guys thing, but it was our show. It was Hybrid Show.
Yeah.
And where I was very fortunate is like, I jumped into a company, jumped into a position where there was a lot of connections, a lot of people to be known. So the first meet that I was ever involved with in powerlifting that was actually sanctioned was a pro level meet. But with those 6 years behind it of me learning how events and learning how competitions run, it kind of gave me a lot of those tools to kind of let things snowball up, if that makes sense.
Yes. No, it does make a lot of sense. And I didn't realize that was your first like technical meet, as like a meet director, or even if it was on the back end, as like a pro day. This is pretty insane to think about, but it makes sense knowing like the gym that you were at, and knowing like some of your timeline. I don't know you super well, but we all kind of keep track of each other online and everything. So that had to make you like, probably, I'm sure you were a little nervous, even though you knew what you were doing, but I'm sure on the back end you were sort of like, oh shit, man, there's a lot on the line here, right?
For sure, for sure. But again, a lot of it goes down to, and I've said this a lot with opening my gym, with my success, with everything, a lot of it kind of sometimes falls into luck, and being lucky that you have these kind of cards in front of you. And like, I was lucky that I had that opportunity and I was able to meet them, and I left the gym that I was working at. And then I had, an endless amount of possibility with their name, their reputation. It was a matter of if I took it and ran with it. Yeah. And I did. And that's what helped, snowball me running Hybrid Showdown for 3 years before leaving running Ghost Clash. So yeah, man.
Absolutely.
Well, it's been awesome chatting with you guys. I loved hearing the story, loved hearing the history. Let everyone know where they can find you guys on social media, find Rockwell's events, and I hope to see you guys next year at the Ghost Clash again.
Yeah, okay. Definitely. Thanks for having us on, and I'm going to have you on the Rockwell podcast one of these days as well.
Thank you, Alex.
Deal, man. Hell yeah.
You guys could check out our Instagram, Rockwell Barbell. The link tree will have all of the links up and the information about our meets. And like everything else you need to know about us, or www.rockwellbarbell.com. Thank you, everyone, and thank you, Alex.
Thank you.